Cultural heritage conservation. What is it? Professionals get it, and enthusiasts are eager to learn more. For everyone, the key lies in words. Words to describe, define, understand, and share. Words are containers, holding the concepts they express, their history and their regular usage by those familiar with them, carrying everything, even the invisible, as well as the unseen dynamics they generate. So, welcome to Interfaces, the podcast, a place where I, Simona Sayeva, conservation engineer, dive into the words of cultural heritage conservation. Why interfaces? Because they are frontiers and contact zones where different ideas and practices meet, shaping our understanding of cultural heritage. With every word, we will explore the shaded corner of conservation with a personal touch. From authenticity to zillige, each episode dives deep into a single key term that embodies this intricate field. If you want to enjoy art and heritage conservation, this podcast is for you. Join me on this exploratory journey through interfaces, where words connect us to the past and guide us toward a sustainable future in cultural heritage conservation. Stay tuned and follow my podcast on Spotify to receive updates on the latest episode. Thank you for your support and happy listening. Let's get started. Pathology. For a moment, let's think about elephants. They are large, very large, with considerable mass, moving around covered in thick skin. Now, imagine getting closer, so close that you see their skin is full of folds, or we could say deformations. If we get even closer, we'll see that these folds have a precise pattern dictated by many factors, such as the position of joints, cavities, etc. Depending on the areas, the folds are tighter, more concentric, and now follow certain directions. These folds result from the repeated and frequent movements elephants make, like walking, bending, contracting, releasing, opening, closing, etc. They are adaptations of the skin to the typical movements of the body, adjusting to the anatomical and physiological conditions of the elephant. We are observing an elephant, but it could just as well be an object, like a building and its visible surface, or also something much smaller. Of course, keeping in mind the different deformation scales relevant to the various performances of the surface. Let's talk about changes and their visible signs. When approaching an object with the intent to conserve it, the first direct analysis focuses on its material composition and structural constitution, as well as its state of conservation. Our primary tool is sight, so we concentrate on what is visible, identifying the signs of change that have occurred over time. These changes can occur under ordinary conditions. Think, for example, of wear and tear, environmental effects, interaction with other elements, or even maintenance interventions. They can also occur under extraordinary conditions. For example, think of catastrophic events, repurposing, intentional modification, etc. At this initial stage of analysis, we begin by gathering these visible signs by type. First, by the affected part, surface, structure, and interlayers between them. Then, by characteristic alterations for each part, such as, for example, just to name a few, color changes, deformations, breaks, etc. And also by intentional human interventions. The more complex the object, the more detailed and specific this analysis will be. Today, the international cultural heritage conservation community shares this basic observation methodology. Some variations attributable to local conventions are possible, yet aligning with the general principles we have just seen. Among the terms generally used to refer to these visible signs is pathology. Pathology. What does it mean? Pathology is a term borrowed from the medical field and adopted in the conservation of cultural heritage. Its original possible definition are the scientific study of disease, the medical characteristic of a disease, or furthermore, a disease or medical condition. These definitions are from the Cambridge Dictionary. As we can see, the term pathology is related to disease, whether it be its study, its characteristics, or the disease itself. And what is a disease? It is a condition of a person, animal, or plant in which its body or structure is harmed because an organ or part is unable to work as it usually does. An illness. Essentially, something that implicitly causes deterioration and damage. Continuing with the analogy between medicine and conservation, we could say that pathology is related to homeostatic imbalance. Homeostasis. Here's a new word, which we will dedicate another episode to. For now, let's just understand that homeostasis is the capacity of living beings to self-regulate and maintain constant internal conditions, despite external changes. Okay, we are not focusing on living beings. We are focusing on objects, specifically cultural heritage. However, what they have in common with the living beings is that both function with a physical body in an external environment. This is also why it is possible to adopt a term such as pathology in the framework of conservation. But why adopt the term pathology in cultural heritage conservation? In cultural heritage conservation, the term pathology allows us to consider both the symptom and its underlying cause, regardless of the type of object or its scale. This term is extensively used in the framework of historic buildings. A dedicated online platform, Conservation Wiki, defines building pathology as a holistic approach to studying and understanding buildings, particularly building defects and associated remedial action. This open platform, very useful for newcomers to conservation, is managed by the Institute of Historic Building Conservation. Using the term pathology is a very smart lexical choice because, with one word, it introduces both the visible sign and the cause behind it, thus leading to the next step, diagnosis. Just like in medicine, in cultural heritage conservation, pathology provides the scientific basis for understanding disease, while diagnosis applies this knowledge to identify and treat problems. So, it's clear that there cannot be a modification of the original state without a cause that provokes it. However, using the term pathology in cultural heritage conservation can have some conceptual pitfalls. Although its use is internationally shared, nuances exist between the different languages and cultural contexts. In some contexts, the term may be used more to indicate visible symptoms than the disease itself, or vice versa. For instance, in the conservation of decorated architectural surfaces, such as mural painting, pathology often refers to the visible signs of alteration and degradation. Regardless of its specific use, the term pathology has the undeniable advantage of pushing the observation beyond the visible signs. The point lies precisely in understanding the origins of the symptom while observing them. The visible signs. Are they all pathologies? To expand our previous topic, visible signs can be classified into main categories: alterations and degradations. For professionals, the difference between these two terms is clear. For enthusiasts, it might be less so. Let's clarify. According to the ICOMOS ISCS Illustrated Glossary on Stone Deterioration Patterns, an alteration is a modification of the material that does not necessarily imply a worsening of its characteristics from the point of view of conservation. For instance, a reversible coating applied on a stone may be considered an alteration, while a degradation is a decline in condition, quality, or functional capacity. You can find these references and all the previous in the episode notes. In summary, an alteration does not harm. A degradation does. Are you starting to see the pitfall? Or, to better say, the trap? In cultural heritage conservation, using the term pathology generically risks conflating alteration with degradations, leading to several risks. The first is conducting a partial analysis of visible signs. The second is treating something that is not a problem as it is. To understand these risks, let's go back to the elephants. If we only observe the skin, disconnected from the body, we might mistake a physiological fold, a deformation, for a symptom of pathology. This often happens due to a compartmentalized approach to conservation. Surface on one side, body structure on the other. This trap is particularly evident when the object is permanently connected to a building, such as a mural painting, tapestries, a decorated ceiling, a chandelier, just to name a few. The reasons are many and vary case by case, but generally common factors include compartmentalized management between architectural and artistic assets, poor coordination between different expertise, educational backgrounds that, as I like to call it, lack empathy for complementary fields, intervention schedules that hinder interdisciplinary collaboration, and the list could continue. Many factors prevent those working on the so-called artistic part from linking a visible superficial sign to a broader behavior of the building. Indeed, it is the knowledge and understanding of the building's behavior that allows us to distinguish between an alteration, a physiology, and a degradation, a pathology. Achieving this requires a deeper implementation of interdisciplinarity. The adoption of a distinction between physiologies and pathologies, pushing beyond the conceptual definition, demands further clarity in inclusive vision. It is not possible to study a surface without studying the structure of which it is a part. This is the way to avoid conceptual pitfalls. Embracing physiology in conservation. Let's discover some benefits together. I have to admit, I used to do it too. For years, I too used the term pathology, and in doing so, I realized that alone it can lead to excessive approximation, if not a limitation of the analysis scope. However, if we go back to the perspective of the elephant, an organism made of connected parts and with an external surface, we begin to see that not all alterations are pathologies. Some might actually be visible signs compatible with the physiological behavior of the whole. In one word, it could be about physiologies, meaning changes that have occurred in the surface to adapt, making it physiologically compatible with the supporting structure. As usual, thoughtful use of this terminology helps to increase awareness of the importance of both preventive and curative maintenance and conservation before a physiology turns into a pathology. It's an important difference as the conservation approach changes, helping to widen the alterations recognition and distinguishing them from pathologies. This approach, which I have applied for years, is based on extensive observation of both the object and the work dynamics. It is well illustrated in my books, particularly in Conservazione delle decorazioni architettoniche, il ruolo delle strutture di supporto, referenced in this episode notes. This approach acknowledges that some causes may be unavoidable, but can be studied and understood to develop probable hypotheses about how the resulting alterations evolve, leading to prediction. The goal is to ensure that the surface can accompany these changes with minimal compromise to its conservation state and authenticity, driving us to a more sustainable vision of cultural heritage conservation. Greater knowledge allows for better adaptation of conservation solutions. In the field of architectural conservation, not all factors affecting surfaces or decorations can be eliminated. However, a deeper understanding of these issues enables more appropriate intervention tailored to the specific situation. This approach requires access to information, opportunities for a comprehensive research, and effective collaboration among professionals from different disciplines. And this is exactly the purpose of this podcast. What can elephants teach us about buildings, or generally speaking, about objects? Let's start by thinking of a building. If we start thinking of the support for decorations, for simplicity, let's focus only on the superficial ones for now. As a body covered in skin, we immediately notice that our perception changes. We begin to broaden our concepts and see that the building plays a much larger role in determining the state of the skin. Distinguishing a leg from the belly, their possible movements, and their connections allows for the study of skin folds. This study can reasonably lead to predictive hypotheses about the evolution of the folds, wounds, the integrity of the skin, and so on. This is why knowing how to look at a building in terms of the alteration to surface decorations, coating, and related apparatus is important. It's something we know, but it's often conducted in a sectorial and sometimes even abstract way. Often, information does not pass from one field to another, at least not in a way that is usable across different sectors, or, better yet, at the right scale for it to be utilized. We talked about the surface, but as you now see, it can be also a more 3D part. In conclusion, today's episode focused on the word pathology, emphasizing its role in understanding degradation. Our exploration of this term introduced new concepts such as physiology, homeostasis, and authenticity, broadening our perspective on cultural heritage conservation. By recognizing that not all changes are disease, and that some are natural and normal, we adopt a more sustainable and interdisciplinary approach. This understanding presents some benefits. It fosters collaboration across different fields, enhancing our appreciation of both visible signs and underlying causes. Embracing this homeostatic view helps preserve the authenticity and integrity of cultural heritage. The words we use, like physiology, homeostasis, authenticity, play a pivotal role in shaping our approach to conservation. That's why in future episodes we'll delve deeper into each of these terms. If you're interested, you can also find more in my books. Words are at the heart of our podcast, driving our understanding and approach to the conservation of cultural heritage. And as we have seen today, sometimes addressing the elephant in the room is the key to unlocking deeper insights. As we wrap up this episode of my podcast Into Phases, I wanted to thank you for joining me on this exploration of cultural heritage conservation through words. I'd like to extend my gratitude to the amazing team behind this podcast. Media, Salvatore Melluso, for expertly crafting our audio experience. Graphic design, Emanuela Nosari, for creating our striking visuals. Language, Tanya Yakubenko, for ensuring our message resonates clearly. If you enjoyed our discussion and are interested in delving deeper into these topics, especially for my Italian listener, be sure to check out my books. Conservazione delle decorazioni architettoniche, il ruolo delle strutture di supporto, published in 2022, and my latest release, Pitture murali, i degradi di origine meccanica, metodologia per restauratori e ingegneri. You can find links to these books and all the references mentioned in this episode in the show notes. Don't forget to check them out. Stay tuned And make sure to follow my podcast on Spotify by hitting the follow button to receive updates on the latest episodes. You can also show support by rating the podcast with stars. This helps more listeners discover the podcast. Thank you for your attention today, and I look forward to having you join us in the next episode of Interfaces, the podcast.